Mike Newton teaches law at Vanderbilt University. He helped the Iraqis establish the special tribunal.
Let's bring in a guest now. Mike Newton teaches law at Vanderbilt University.
Yeah. Morning again, Mike.
Good morning, Carol.
So the trial has begun.
The international law expert spent more than 3 hours providing a legal play-by-play for CNN as the drama unfolded in Iraq. The first images of Saddam Hussein walking into a Baghdad courtroom, images carried throughout the world.
This was a translator who saw every minute of the first trial and asked her what was the most significant thing that stood out to her from the whole thing. And she said the first time Saddam came into the courtroom, he passed about 5 feet away from her and he looked at her. And she said, he then sat down as a criminal defendant and I went upstairs to do my job on behalf of the law. She said, I'll always remember that. It's very powerful.
All the work you've done on this and all the teaching you've done, to see it actually being put into place this morning, what goes through your mind?
Well, it's a red letter day.
The former military judge advocate general has been to Baghdad 3 times to help train and work with the Iraqi Tribunal. His most recent trip was this summer.
Primarily, my goal was to find out what international issues were problematic for them and the things that remained difficult for them and the things that they still had trouble understanding, and be a resource to solve those issues.
But look behind the work and you get a snapshot of the people. People like the chief judge of the second trial.
This judge is a great and experienced jurist. He also became a friend.
Or these members of the prosecution team.
While there are no female judges, this is the number 2 prosecutor on this case is a female. Her name is Prosecutor Nabal. She's just wonderful. The lead prosecutor is a fellow named Prosecutor Munketh, who's also just a tremendously good prosecutor. He's very well prepared. They've worked till 2 and 3 in the morning preparing this case for months. They're as ready to go to trial as any team in the world.
A series of military campaigns, 8 campaigns, which were launched from February to September 1988, constitute one of the most tragic events in the history of the human conscience.
Newton worked with the prosecutors on their opening statement in the second trial, better known as the Anfal trial, that got underway August 21st. The New York Times described those opening arguments as efficient and emotional.
We have mass graves, forensics evidence, of nothing but women and children. Other forensics mass graves of nothing but young men and boys with bullet wounds to the back of the head and their hands tied behind their back. Whole villages were emptied and then bulldozed under, so that we have before and after photos from above of where villages were just 48 hours before, where now is nothing but level ground.
Newton says this trial has gotten off to a relatively smooth start, thanks to the chief judge.
He held a pretrial conference, got all the defense lawyers and the prosecution together as a pretrial matter, and said, here are the ground rules. I expect you to act nobly in the highest standards of our profession, and then allowed all the defense attorneys to raise a variety of issues. And that was simply not done in the first trial.
Judge, this is a law. Are you respecting the law?
So what's your argument, Judge Abdullah?
The class is international criminal law. The professor's practical experiences bring the textbooks to life for these second and third year law students like Claire Davidson.
It's mind-blowing, that he would be here at Vanderbilt and he actually knows what's going on. I mean, he's a part of it, and you just can't get it anywhere else.
Your answer is, now wait a minute. Are you going to tell me in 1998 or 1982 or 1989 that you have no idea that crimes against humanity is a developed corpus of international humanitarian law? I think not.
For Aliyah Muhammad, a second-year law student from Buffalo, it's not just about the law.
He's been in the front lines of it, so he just turns it into these engaging little snippets of stories that you just can't help but be immersed in.
What about crimes against humanity?
I had him last year and we were discussing international humanitarian law, and he had actually talked with Colin Powell and discussed what we should do with the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. So that made it extremely personable, but then he also brought out like the official documents, that it really made it real for us. But then he explained, should we treat them as prisoners of war or should we not? And the considerations that actually went into making that actual real-world decision.
We have Chapter 7 authority to override sovereignty, to create this tribunal, drawing on...
Eric Meehan remembers one story in particular, a story about an Iraqi judge who admired former Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson.
He spoke with us about Justice Jackson was the head prosecutor in the Nuremberg trial, and he talked about an Iraqi judge over in Iraq that he'd worked with who actually he gave him a picture of Justice Jackson.
So I had this picture sent to Baghdad, nice color picture, and I framed it, and I gave it to the judge as a going-away gift. And he was very moved by that. And as we talked, he had a farewell dinner for me then. I've spread out Iraqi river fish, and so we're doing our dinner. And the judge leans back and he does this and he says, Abdullah Jackson. And I thought, you know, that's a wonderful thing for an Iraqi jurist to aspire to have the kind of legacy in the world and the kind of credibility and the respect that Robert Jackson has.
It's just cool to see that kind of thing happening and have someone who can tell you about it firsthand.
One of the fundamental principles of lawyering that you all have to learn is that words have meaning. You've got to read the law carefully.
The professor says he would be derelict in his duty if his students did not read Jackson's opening statement from Nuremberg, words that mean so much to one Iraqi judge.
It is one of the most poetic, magnificent opening statements in the history of jurisprudence.
But as the world watches this courtroom in Baghdad, Mike Newton remembers the people who make up the Iraqi Tribunal.
People really need to appreciate the patriotism, and it reminds me in our Declaration of Independence, the last line of the Declaration of Independence of our signers says, "We pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor for the sake of these principles," and we put our names down here in signatory of these principles that we've signed up to. What these Iraqi judges and prosecutors have done is no less significant. They've literally put their lives and their properties and their homes all at risk for the sake of principle, for the sake of the rule of law.